Hello, beautiful ones. It's kind of late here, and I'm super tired, you guys. But I want to address this question that I'm getting a lot from patients that I work with and other people about a challenge that a lot of us have in public speaking: how to keep our audience engaged, and how to prevent this phenomena where people are listening and then we are speaking in a monotonous voice, and then they are struggling to keep their attention, and then their eyelids just seem to get really heavy, and then they're kind of like falling asleep. And you may be experiencing that when you're listening to a lecture or in a meeting or in a Zoom meeting, and then all of a sudden, somebody asks you a question, and you're like, "Oh, wait, I was listening. Can you just repeat that question?" It's just embarrassing, and there's a good reason why all of this is happening. So, what's the deal with monotonous voices or people that are just standing in one place as presenters or speakers, and everybody just beginning to drone and drift? Well, in the brain and in the mind, there is a process that's called habituation. Habituation is a decreased behavioral response when the stimulus, whether it's visual, auditory, olfactory, is the same. It's not changing. And that's a result of a process that's called adaptation, which are changes in the neural processes that happen throughout the brain, depending on the senses and other areas that are involved in a particular situation. And usually it's a cohort of brain regions that are involved in this adaptation change of the neural conductivity and response. But the habituation is the decrease in behavior, and that can be a decrease in perception, a decrease in alertness, and decrease in attention, which is what we want to keep sustained when we're talking and what we would like to maintain when somebody's talking to us. So, it's kind of interesting because if we think about it in terms of evolution, we are wired to respond to change. For example, even in a non mammal, if there is a frog and it's starving to death, and you place a freaking fly on its nose, and the fly is anesthetized and not moving, the poor frog is going to die of starvation. It will not even be aware that his lunch is placed on his nose. However, if the fly wakes up from the anesthesia and starts moving around, you can see the frog reacting very quickly and sending that nice, sexy tongue and getting the fly and swallowing it, and we have a happy, rounded belly frog. Well, at least a little bit rounded. So, what is happening with that? Why is it when there is a change, all of a sudden there is reactivity, there is an increase in response? If you remember from the video, if you watch a video about I love you, but there is a brain response that's called the reorienting response. And that response involves two brain structures that work in coordination. So we're talking about the dorsal frontoparietal network. So parietal region is going to be here, frontal, dorsal is going to be the back, more the top, and his brother, which is the ventral frontoparietal network, which is the ventral is sort of, you can imagine it like the belly or the lower side. So when we have the same stimulation, the dorsal frontoparietal region is going to be responsible for the sustained attention on that stimulus. And if it's too monotonous and unchanging, the brain interprets it as, well, we don't really need to pay that much attention because nothing dangerous or interesting is happening. There is no appearance of a potential mate, and there's no appearance of a potential predator. So we can kind of relax and catch up on our Z's a little bit or start thinking about a grocery list. And if there is a change, the ventral frontoparietal network, which is during the sustained attention is inhibited, when there is a change, it becomes disinhibited and joins his dorsal brother, And what happens then? The dorsal part remains active, and now the ventral part becomes awake, and the ventral part is going to make sure that attention is shifting from the no longer relevant stimulus and refocus on the new and more interesting or more worth exploring stimulus. And that happens when there is a change. How does that translate to public speaking? If we are going to be standing in one place and not moving, and we're going to talk in a very monotonous voice, really we are sort of putting to sleep the nervous system, because after a while there's going to be adaptation, habituation, and there's going to be decrease in attention and behavioral response and perception. If we employ this very ancient and hardwired mechanism of the brain of reorienting, response, that means that we go, or we change our inflection, or we start moving around, or you could see me when I'm doing trainings, you could see me suddenly getting on a chair. Why? Why not? And, you change your expression and intonation, and you just put a word that is out of place, and you see people waking up. And that reawakes the brain and gives a signal to the ventral frontoparietal network to shift the attention. So it's sort of a wake-up call, like attention to the brain, and then we have the increased attention, and we're able to sustain, or your audience is going to be able to sustain their attention on the next segment of what you're saying and presenting. So that's the trick. Be playful. Change your voice, change your accent, walk around. You never want to see a situation where people know exactly where you are. Move around, walk behind their backs, sit down, stand up, do something, be playful, enjoy yourself, have fun, have variability, and your audience is going to be captivated. Of course, a good content helps as well. Okay. Love you guys. Peace.